Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. So in 3 days, we've got the federal election. It's been one of the shortest election campaigns on history. It's one that some people didn't think we needed to call, but it's turned into a kind of interesting race. And so I wanted to check back in with a panel that I got a lot of very positive responses to, I guess about 10 days ago with Sara MacIntyre, who is a former Director of Communications for Christy Clark and Communications for former Prime Minister Stephen Harper, and Marc Kealey, who also worked with former Prime Minister, this one, John Turner. Both of them run their own government affairs, public policy, public affairs companies today, and are very well knowledgeable of what's going on in politics. Sara, Marc, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Good to see you, Brian. Good to see you, Sara, again.
Good to see you both. Lots has happened.
Yes.
Lots has happened. So Sara, let's start with you. What do you think about, I guess it was 10 days ago I checked in with you last. Have things changed in the last 2 weeks of the campaign?
Well, I've noticed a real change in Jagmeet Singh's campaign talking points and speeches. He's really trying to court those progressive voters back to the NDP. Now, of course, Justin Trudeau is going after the same voters, and he's saying, we can deliver. The NDP has no chance of forming a government, but, look at our record. And Jagmeet Singh saying the same thing. Look at his record. He hasn't been able to deliver on anything he said. Why believe him now? Why waste your vote? Vote for the NDP. We were the ones that held the government's feet to the fire for workers during the last pandemic. So I've seen that change. Really strong message. And of course, the last few days, everyone is starting to really drill down on their attacks on each other, on the leadership of what's different between each party and what your vote means. And so you see, Aaron O'Toole kind of taking aim at Justin Trudeau and how he's handled the pandemic and his scandals and misogyny, and Jody Wilson-Raybould's book's been out. So a lot has happened in a very short period of time.
Marc, what about you? What do you think's happened in the last 2 weeks?
Listen, I think you got, and I'll say the last time we spoke, Sara agreed with me when I first started. I agree with Sara. I think it's been a very interesting campaign over the last 10 days since we've spoken, because my only corollary to Sara's comments is that this has now become a bit of a referendum on Aaron O'Toole and the Conservatives. And let me tell you why I'm saying that. After the debate, we thought, O'Toole did a great job, and it certainly made him look like he was, how do I say that, a bit more attractive. But in the last 10 days, these attacks on Justin personally, I think, or the Prime Minister personally, have not gone over well with Canadians. And as both of you know, we're doing an awful lot of research across Canada. I'll just give you a sense about what we're hearing. Atlantic Canada is probably going to stay the same. Quebec is going to stay the same. The battlegrounds, and we had this discussion the last time too, I think are a little more focused now. And the battlegrounds are really the 905 and Alberta. And I think Alberta is really a referendum on Jason Kenney and the Conservatives in that province. And I think that's going to bear fruit for the other parties, particularly the Liberal Party. And I think the 905 is going to let Aaron O'Toole down.
You really think the Liberals could win some seats in Alberta, Marc?
I do.
It's interesting, Sara, that last time we chatted, I think you talked about the Maverick Party and Western alienation. The front cover of the Toronto Sun today was warning people a vote for Maxime Bernier is a vote for Justin Trudeau. And it's almost as if the split on the right to Maxime Bernier is a real concern to right-wing pundits.
Well, it's a real concern to the Conservative Party in general and their fortunes on Monday. I mean, they are the spoiler. All you see is their numbers going up and up. Now, of course, in the first past the post system, their vote is very inefficient because it's spread over a lot of different geographic areas. It's mostly rural areas in the West. And so how does that party actually capitalize on that? Well, they don't. All they're going to do is end up splitting the vote on the right and then giving the opportunity for the Liberals to come in for a few seats in Alberta and perhaps the NDP as well. And the other major battleground is the Lower Mainland. Of course, there's always, and it's really a contest between the NDP and the Liberals. And you can tell by how much time both leaders have spent in that province trying to secure that vote and make sure that they've got their voters going out to vote on Monday.
We're chatting tonight with Marc Kealey and Sara MacIntyre about the election on Monday. Stay with us. We're going to take a quick break for some messages and come back more with Sara and Marc in just a minute. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour, Saga 960. We're chatting tonight with Sara MacIntyre and Marc Kealey. Both of them are long-term political, what's the right word? I'm not going to say activists. I was going to use a more negative term, but been really at the highest levels. Marc worked for former Prime Minister John Turner, and Sara worked for former Prime Minister Stephen Harper. They're both communications experts. They're both in public affairs, government affairs, public relations, etc. And they know what they're talking about. And they've been active, one as a liberal, the other as a conservative. But I think across different provinces. Sara was very involved in British Columbia when she worked for Christy Clark. Marc is, I know, knowledgeable about politics across the country. I got to tell you, I've spent a little bit of time on Vancouver Island in the last little while. There's green signs everywhere. And I know, they've had two Green MPs previously. We haven't mentioned the Greens so far. Have the Greens got no chance?
Well, if you want me to chime in, I will. I think you see their numbers have gone down substantially. This has not been a good campaign for Annamie Paul. It's not been a good campaign for the Greens. They've sort of had their message really drowned out throughout this campaign. I'm gonna, and when we talk about this too, I don't believe she's even going to win her seat, Brian, which is an indictment on the party and probably an indictment on her leadership, which is too bad because I think she had a good debate and she came out.
I thought she had a great debate.
She did, and she did very well in the 2 days after that, and then she retreated back to her riding, and that's all she's doing. So it's really too bad because she could have had, I think, a hallowed place, but I think Elizabeth May will probably prevail in Vancouver Island, and things might be fascinating to watch in that party over the next couple of months.
Sara, we've heard a lot of concern about Maxime Bernier, but I haven't heard many comments about the Maverick Party. What do you hear about them?
Yeah, from what I'm hearing from people out in Alberta, their vote has kind of just collapsed. And so people are really making a choice, Erin O'Toole or the People's Party, which is actually a calculation people are making now. The difficulty for Erin, let alone suffering the attacks from Justin Trudeau, which I think they're a bit tired, but some of the attack ads have been very pointed about taking Canada backward, whether it's dealing with climate change, whether it's with the pandemic, whether it's gun bans, whether it's women's ability to choose, which is such a tired old argument, but it's one that does work, and that's why you keep hearing it. And then you've got, of course, the pandemic numbers coming out of Alberta this week, which are just awful, and same with Saskatchewan. And so they're rolling back onto some of their measures. And so some of that blowback onto Jason Kenney may actually end up hitting Erin O'Toole. How much? I don't think. Albertans, are very aware of the difference between a federal government and a provincial government, but it is hampering, I think, some of his traditional base on getting out the vote, which of course is the most important thing. The only poll that matters is the one on election day, but what parties have to do and what they're focusing on now is motivating their base and getting out the vote.
But the press and the talk radio that I was listening to in the last couple of days, last day, frankly, Sara, was that a right-wing, a conservative, a more lax attitude toward COVID-19 in Alberta and Saskatchewan has not worked. Airing on behalf on the side of the economy and opening up in early July, as Alberta did, was a huge mistake. Jason Kenney actually came out and apologized for that strategy. How can that not be a negative for Erin O'Toole and the Conservatives and their, his attitude toward not ensuring that all the candidates are vaccinated and his more lax attitude toward COVID-19?
Well, are you asking me or Marc?
I'm asking you.
Probably have the same answer.
And I'd be interested in your answer, Sara.
Well, I think, no doubt it's going to have an impact on him. However, Albertans are very keenly aware of the difference between a federal government and provincial government, and they always have been long before the National Energy Program and the first Trudeau. That being said, there is those people that are vaccinated, Erin was vaccinated, his wife was vaccinated, and, there's, I think, no question.
But the impact of Alberta and their numbers, and Saskatchewan and their numbers is not just an Alberta and Saskatchewan issue, it's a national issue. It's the press across the country that are using it as an example of.
And I agree with that, Brian. I agree with that. And I'll tell you why I agree with that. If you look at the last 2 or 3 campaign stops that Aaron O'Toole's had in Eastern Canada and Quebec, that question's been asked. And I think the national media have globbed onto the notion that he won't criticize Premier Kenney, for what's happened in the province. And I think, and Sara knows this better than all of us, he ostensibly owes his leadership to Jason Kenney. So I think people will say nationally, I don't know if I want a prime minister in my country who's got allegiances to a guy who I think his province is going to repudiate in the next provincial election. So that could become a very big problem for Aaron O'Toole.
Well, also remember, though, that Jason Kenney and Premier Moe in Saskatchewan never really did anything throughout this campaign to stand beside Aaron O'Toole because they were still upset about the carbon pricing being included in the Conservative platform. Now, that being said, like Jason Kenney, Aaron and Aaron's relationship, I mean, if I was advising Aaron O'Toole, I'd say, look, the chief medical officer has accepted responsibility that it was the wrong strategy in the wrong direction. The premier's accepted that it's the wrong strategy in the wrong direction. And I accept that too. And build in a little bit of space between him and Jason and let the fault lay where it should, which is not on Aaron O'Toole's shoulder. It's certainly on the chief medical officer and the premier.
I agree with that. And then, of course, it doesn't help when Aaron O'Toole is blaming Justin Trudeau for the issues in Alberta. That doesn't help.
No. I'm shocked that still 4 weeks into this campaign, people are talking about whether it was the right decision to actually call the election. How is this issue, still surviving?
Well, because there hasn't been an answer. There really hasn't. Other than Justin Trudeau thought that this was the best time he was ever going to have to pull an election. The numbers were only going to go down. And so this was the one and only opportunity he saw while that window of, before we were in the thick of the third wave, the window before we have the big results coming in from, having our schools opened up. This was going to be his one and only chance with the numbers holding that the way that they are. They were going nowhere but down. And you've seen that throughout the campaign. I mean, his popularity remains pretty stable shockingly, over the past 18 months by minority and throughout the election campaign. It really hasn't moved unless, Mark, you've got different numbers on that.
No, I totally agree. And frankly, I'd even add to that to say that it's a whole lot of nothing. I think that the Conservatives trying to have this, and it's on the radio constantly about this $610 million election that never should have been called. I think people have moved past that, to be very blunt. And frankly, what I'm seeing, and this has become almost laughable in a way, and I'm not trying to criticize Aaron O'Toole, I'm criticizing his campaign, that they want to make him look like he's Justin Trudeau in 2015. They got him dressing really hip. They got him, making sure that he's doing what he. Go ahead, sir. I'm interested.
It works. So maybe take a playbook from a winner for once in a while.
Fair enough. But my point is, the libs are masterful at carting out, we'll call them en français, the anciens. And so we're good at, we got Chrétien out at an event in Mississauga. We got good support from that. We've had events in Montreal with Paul Martin. And guess what? The Conservatives pulled up Brian Mulroney. It's the same. It's almost as if that works for them, we're going to try it ourselves. And
then he said something about we need deep structural changes, which I think scared people. And they asked Aaron O'Toole what deep structural changes are, and used it as almost a scare tactic of big changes to come that have not been yet announced. I was surprised by that.
An election is no time to talk about issues, Brian. Remember how well that paid off for our only female prime minister? Look, I've actually been impressed this campaign, though. There has been a lot of discussion on substantive policy issues. unlike other campaigns where it's a lot of just mudslinging back and forth, there's been a lot of discussion on the housing crisis, on affordability, on telcos, on tax levels and income and reconciliation and mental health and the opioid crisis. There has been actual discussion of policy issues, and yeah, of course, a lot of campaigns go back to their kind of natural tendency of here's the boogeyman of the Conservatives and here's what the Liberals say about, or here's what the Conservatives say about the Liberals. That's all very expected. At least we've actually had some real exchange on actual substantive issues this election.
And I think that if you look at it from this perspective, one of the bigger issues that I think is getting a ton of national attention and getting good traction is the Liberals' daycare plan. I think, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say Justin Trudeau, if he prevails, will be the next Tommy Douglas, based on daycare alone.
Really? You think it's that profound?
It's that profound.
Yeah, and it's that costly. It's that costly. I mean, it will be that costly. It will be tantamount to a national healthcare system. It will increasingly, it'll eat up so much of our budget between healthcare and daycare. There won't be much left for anything else in the country.
You know, it's interesting, Sarah. I had a public policy professor of politics, public policy expert on my show on Monday. And he said of all the different proposals, it was the only one that actually had a positive payback. That the Quebec plan actually proved out that economically female participation in the labor force increased to such an extent that it actually makes money to spend on daycare. And this is an individual thought of as a more fiscally a right-wing, fiscally oriented public policy expert. So I think that actually might be interesting. And you compare that versus
have a plan. It's a different plan, and I think that. For women in the workforce, which is generally what this program is targeted for, a lot of them don't work 9 to 5 and they need flexibility. And just because, the daycare space is available from 9 to 5, it doesn't mean that fits with your work schedule. So those lack of flexibility on this and who's actually going to build the actual physical spaces. And that's going to require a lot of provincial cooperation.
We're having a chat tonight with Marc Kealey and Sara MacIntyre about the election coming up in 3 days. We're going to take a break for some messages and come back more. And Marc, I think that you've got some new numbers. And so we might ask you to tell us a little bit about those numbers after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. Well, it's been, I think, 30 days and we got, maybe it's 29 days and we got 3 left, shortest campaign or on to the shortest campaigns in history. Some people are questioning whether the election was needed at all, but we've got it. It's going to happen on Monday and it's going to be interesting. And maybe we'll talk about this a little bit. Some people think we won't even get the answer on Monday. It'll take until we have the opportunity to count the mail-in ballot. And all that controversy in the United States in the last election when it took a couple of days to get the mail-in ballots counted. I wonder whether we're going to have some people challenge the validity of the election results, at least for a while. Anyway, Marc, last time we chatted 10 days ago, you said that you had some numbers based on quite a large sample from across the country, and you were recommending or forecasting at the time a minority conservative government. Where are you now?
So I want to preface my comments by saying when we spoke last, Sara made an excellent comment when she said campaigns matter. And, we're in the middle of this thing and we've had 10 days since we spoke last and there's been an awful lot of campaigning. I'm going to suggest to you that what our research has uncovered is that the Conservatives have stalled. Maybe, some people in media have said that they probably peaked too early, that the NDP have also sort of lost traction, and the PPC, the People's Party, have gained a heck of a lot of support, and so have the Liberals as a consequence. So, our sample size is fairly large, and it goes across the country in every single riding. When we spoke last, it gave, like you said, it gave the Conservatives the edge in terms of what could potentially be a minority for them. I'm going to suggest to you, and the new numbers that we have really favored exactly what we're seeing. So my comments about who's stalling and who's gaining will sort of lay out. So from our new numbers, the Libs we think are going to get somewhere around 147 seats. The Conservatives will get about 123. The NDP will get 29, and I had thought that maybe they would have had a bit of a breakthrough in other places, but I don't see that at all. So 29, the Bloc 32, so it's a bit of a stasis for them in Quebec, and the Green will get 2. We said last time 0. I think the 2 seats probably reflect what you're seeing in Vancouver Island, Brian.
Fascinating. What do you think, Sarah? Do you agree with that, or do you have a different sense?
Well, I mean, 40,000 people is a pretty big sample size, and the predictability and accuracy Marc's had in the past. It would be foolish of me to completely disagree with him. Look, I think that Marc's observation that perhaps the Conservatives peaked too early is probably accurate. I think some of this kind of fallout of things that are happening in Alberta and Saskatchewan, plus the rise of the People's Party's popularity is going to eat into that Conservative vote. So yeah, I think that would be probably as close as my guess would be. I do think the NDP, unfortunately, I think that the debate over Bill 21 in Quebec really eliminated the potential for them to actually make some moves into Quebec. And I don't think it would have ever been the orange wave that they enjoyed under Jack Layton, but they did have a real opportunity in this election to go through that. And then because Jagmeet Singh has been very steadfast in his position on this bill, which I believe is absolutely correct in my opinion, but I'm not a lawyer, that it is discriminatory, it is being challenged in the courts. I think that really put a lot of Quebec voters rethinking whether or not they would vote orange. And so I think that the shakeout and the share of the numbers that Marc's projecting is probably where we're going to end up. Now, whether or not we get those results, as you say, on Monday, I don't know, but there was a lot of people out for the advanced polls. 5.2 million Canadians voted in the advanced polls, me included, and that's up 18% from 2019. So if that's any indication of how people are the participation that they're going to have, I think we'll probably have our answers pretty late Monday night, but I think we will.
But with COVID-19, even if the advanced polls are up, you've got to believe that participation is going to go down. And most people think when participation is low, that benefits the Conservatives because older people, more conservative people will go to the polls no matter what. The statistic that people have talked about is that in 2015, if the same people had shown up as in 2011, Stephen Harper would have won government. And it was new and younger and ethnic people that showed up in huge amounts that elected Justin Trudeau to a majority government that didn't show up to the same degree in 2019 and ended up with a minority. Frankly, the same numbers occurred in the United States with this huge increase to Barack Obama that wasn't there for Hillary Clinton. And so I'm wondering, with a low turnout, and we haven't had the same sort of effort on mail-in ballots and advanced pollings, even though it's up, that the Democrats had in the United States. Could that turnout be a big issue on Monday?
For the Liberals, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to chime in if you don't mind, Sarah, because I agree. I think voter turnout on election day is going to be low. That does favor the Conservatives. There's no better party on planet Earth than the Conservatives at getting out their vote. They're very, very good at that. They've got a well-oiled machine. I think that you're going to see, and they've done a terrific job at advanced polling, but I do think that that election day we're going to see a diminution from elections past. The only issue, though, I think that people, especially those who made up their mind last weekend that this is what they're going to do, went and voted and thought, I'm going to lock in, and they're probably locked in red rather than blue.
Sarah, let me ask you a question if I could. The Globe and Mail did a really interesting review of Aaron O'Toole and his policies a week ago. I'm not sure if you had a chance to read it, but it suggested that he was copying David Cameron from the UK and said that he had taken the Conservative Party to the center and with a lot more progressive attitudes and copied David Cameron's strategy in regards to saying the party needed to modernize. And the conclusion of the article was that if he's successful, the Conservative Party will be different forever. But if he's not successful, the Conservative Party will go back further right. And if Marc's right and the Conservative Party does not win a minority government and Maxime Bernier gets a seat, if not 10%, doesn't that suggest the Conservatives really want to go back to the right?
Well, I think Maxime Bernier's popularity is a moment in time, and it's an anomaly, and he's benefiting from people being pissed off about extreme lockdown measures from the government. He's not going to have that popularity is going to evaporate by the time we're done the third wave. And so I don't think that is a permanent kind of fracturing of the conservative base. I think it's just a moment in time. I do think that the party, I don't think it's going to go and get called to be, oh, we've got to be more to the right as opposed to more to the center if Aaron doesn't win. I think the party's already changed. I think that's forever changed and modernized. And part of that is from a team that Aaron built around him. It's also from the candidates and his candidate screening and the positions he's taken and his platform. I think on many of those old bread and butter issues that the Conservatives used to harp upon have now gone to the background and are focused on more modern policies.
Mark, go ahead, Mark.
I think too, though, the issue that, and I hope this happens, I think the party's going to say, even if he doesn't form a minority government, I talk about Aaron O'Toole, or he doesn't fare well in this election, I think they're gonna give him a chance to sort of see his leadership through, at least until the next review, and he may even get past that. My point about that, though, is that I think he does have to move fast, and I think he has to move very openly so that people see it, particularly in the media, that he's changing his party. I think his comment about this isn't your father's Conservative Party was a smart comment, because I think he's saying to everybody, we're not going to be like that. But I think he really does have to have a place for progressives in his party. I totally agree with Sara. I think that the People's Party is a flash in the pan. This guy is giving permission to people, the 20% or less, that either aren't vaccinated or don't care about things that everybody else in this country cares about. I'm sorry. And it's given them a place to sort of hide. But I think that's an inch thick and a mile wide.
Yeah.
Well, that's what people thought about Donald Trump, and the people that were MAGA supporters. But that's, you know, good 30% of the United States.
The fundamental difference, though, Brian, the fundamental difference in that is you really have two positions in the United States to choose from, either Democrat or Republican, and Trump was Republican. In this particular case, there's 5 or 6 different parties right now, and Bernier's sort of spewing and getting good crowds for people who don't want to wear a mask. We think it's okay not to get a vaccine. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, he's a single issue candidate right now. And once that issue's gone, he's going to have no platform or no audience and no support, and it will completely collapse. Whereas Trump, on the other hand, the MAGA movement was an anti-establishment movement that was not an inch thick. It was feet deep across America. And so I don't really find that those two movements are analogous.
Okay, let's talk about Jagmeet Singh for a minute, Mark. You know, 2 weeks ago, people were thinking that Jagmeet Singh might jump into second place or third place. I apologize, and have more seats than the Bloc Québécois. And he doesn't seem to have kept that situation. What's going to happen to him, do you think?
No, well, if you're asking what his future is, you know, that's up to his party. But I think he had if you base it on how reporters are saying which campaign is the funnest, his is the funnest. You know, he's a good guy. He has a lot of dancing at his events. But his messaging is sophomoric to the max. I think to say we're going to tax the billionaires in this country, the super rich, to get to a balanced budget is just absurdity. And I think people are seeing that. Right. I just can't, you know, I would have said to you before that, you know, he could have cleaned up in several of the ridings in Toronto that ostensibly would have been lost to the Liberals, but I can't see that now.
Yeah,
Mark,
and I think the costing out. Sorry, I was just going to say, when they put the costing of the NDP platform, which was like, I don't know, it's almost like laughably huge. It almost kind of took that credibility that he had been building and just kind of evaporated it, where people were like, this guy's not going for prime minister. He's going to be, you know, the deal maker, the kingmaker of a minority government. And he's putting out there what his big ticket items are that any party is going to have to agree to if they're going to form a coalition. So I think that's actually what's going to be really interesting if we do end up with a minority Trudeau government, And Jagmeet Singh has had so much success working with that Liberal minority government. What's his big price tag items going to be? And that's, where we're going to be looking at in the fall.
Well, that's interesting, Sarah, because I'd even go one step further. Perhaps he doesn't need them if he's got, Blanchette that says, I'm going to support you.
True. That's true. I mean, but I do think that the NDP fortunes between the platform, the costing of the platform, and some of his policy ideas, and then his position on the controversial secular law in Quebec has really wiped out any chances for gains that Jagmeet Singh had. Although he's really improved his campaigning, like you can tell, this is he's not just a new leader. He's got a way to talk to his base, to motivate his base, to have fun. And, that momentum, unfortunately, I think has completely dissipated with the costing of his promises, as well as his position on the secular bill.
I was born in Montreal and grew up in Montreal and have spent in business a fair amount of time in Montreal. And so I'm completely not a separatist. I think that Quebec is an integral part of Canada, obviously. That said, I got to tell you, I was impressed with Blanchette at the leaders debate. And I think he did a very stand-up job. And if I was a Quebecer, I think I might vote for him. Why, Mark, do you think he's not doing well?
Well, I think, and I think a lot of this has to do with that question that was hurled at him at the outset from Sachi Kurl and he answered it well, but I think it played to his base and it didn't play to most Quebecers in the province. I think a lot of people intuitively think that piece of legislation is bad, especially if you look at Montreal. Montreal's changed a lot, Brian, as you know, and it's a heck of a lot more cosmopolitan in terms of who's there now, in terms of people that are living there, than it was when you were growing up in Montreal. So I don't know. I think maybe he thought he was going to get a heck of a lot more inroads in the city of Montreal or greater Montreal, but that just isn't going to happen for him.
What do you think, Sarah?
Well, and it was interesting as well that Legault came out and said that he could work with a conservative minority government. That says a lot to people that had been supporting Blanchette, which unfortunately, I think that endorsement came a little bit too early for conservatives as well. So it's kind of a bit wasted. But it does, for those Quebecers who had thought of the Bloc that separatism wasn't at the fore of that party, that question refocused and said, yeah, this is a separatist party and this is where they stand. And so it didn't help him, that question, even though it did play to his base, it didn't help him actually appeal to Quebecers that are considering between Liberal and Bloc.
Sarah, does an endorsement from Barack Obama mean anything?
No.
Nothing. Seriously?
I echo that. Means absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think people that want to see that endorsement are people that were already going to be voting Liberal. So,
yeah. And isn't it funny, Sarah, that it comes just after the media started saying, "Hey, isn't it funny that Barack Obama hasn't said anything?" Boom. Next thing you know, here it is.
Exactly. Yeah.
What about Mark? Mark, does an endorsement from Hazel McCallion make any difference?
Well, I don't know if Hazel McCallion endorsed them. I don't know. I mean, showing up at an event was probably an endorsement, but Hazel's Hazel. She's an icon, and I think,
hurricane.
Yeah, I think it mattered that she was there. But even saying what she said, I don't know if people really, it's very interesting.
As an endorsement per se. I mean, Hazel is brilliant at playing parties against each other to her own benefit. When she was mayor, she was absolutely brilliant, and we didn't always agree on everything, but as a trailblazer, Hazel's voice matters, and I don't think it was really seen as a complete endorsement.
Agreed. And if I could say this too, Sarah, for me, the best line of this campaign was Chrétien saying that unlike Aaron O'Toole, he doesn't speak from both sides of his mouth. I just thought that was hilarious.
We're chatting with Sara MacIntyre and Marc Kealey, doing an update on the election campaign that's almost over. And what's going to happen on Monday. We're going to take a final break and come back with some concluding comments. I'm going to ask them for a prediction of what's going to happen Monday night, maybe Tuesday morning. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. We're chatting tonight with Marc Kealey and Sara MacIntyre. Marc Kealey was heavily involved in Prime Minister John Turner's administration, and Sara MacIntyre with former Prime Minister Stephen Harper's administration, as well as Christy Clark, former Premier of British Columbia. They're both in the government affairs, public affairs business right now, running their own companies. Sara's is called the VUCA Sara. And Marc, yours is called K&A Associates. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Fantastic. I appreciate both of you joining us. Marc, as you know, this radio station broadcasts from Peel, from Mississauga. We talked last time about how in 2015, the Liberals were able to take all but one seat in Peel. Caledon was the only seat. In 2019, they repeated it, even though there was a minority, because of splits and because Andrew Scheer didn't resonate with suburban 905ers. And they even lost Halton with the former Minister of Transportation, fairly well thought of MP. What do you think now? What's going to happen in Mississauga and Brampton?
Well, as I said when I was talking about the numbers, and our research has sort of played this out, in the 905, which is really a big battleground right now, and I think, as I said, they're going to let down Aaron O'Toole in a big way. There are probably 3 seats that are probably up for grabs and might go Conservative, but none of them in Peel.
None of them in Peel?
No.
Really? That's interesting. So, Sara, Monday night, what do you think is going to happen, and how early or late?
Oh, I think it's going to be a late one for sure, because a lot of those seats that are contested, that are up for grabs, are in the Lower Mainland. So, you know, the 3-hour time zone difference for us in Ontario will make it a late one. But I do think it's, at this point right now, I would call a Liberal minority. I think, you know, the Conservatives are going to have a good seat share, not much difference, well, a bit different than what they have now. And that's going to be, you know, at the expense of the NDP, who I think are going to basically just be at where they are in the blocks where they are. So I don't think, you know, all of this is big, this election of $610 million, all to what, go back to the same kind of positions in the House of Commons. Now, what that means in terms of who's going to work with who afterwards, I think it's going to be a bit different. It'll be a different minority. I think Justin Trudeau's leadership will be in question. Even if he delivers a minority, I think he will be facing leadership issues. But I do think it'll be a late evening, but I don't think it's going to be much different complexion in the House of Commons than it is now.
Marc, with your numbers, it would be a Liberal minority, but a weaker one than last time.
Yes.
If Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister, achieves a worse result than last time, is it a failure?
Well, listen, I'm going to say this. He's got firm control of this party. You know, I heard Sara about the $610 million. She probably wrote the ad for the Conservatives.
Oh, I did not.
But I could say that's not, to me, there's a, you know, this is 6 years of this government. People they know Justin Trudeau right now. He's very calm and he's very collected and he's very confident on the campaign. I think
the last few days he's been really flattered, like he's just been a little bit desperate looking.
The announcement that he made in Windsor, I thought he looked great, Sara. I mean, he really does. He looks a little more, I'm not that certain it's confidence, but he's comfortable right now. But here's my point. People say, well, you know, the party's going to repudiate him too. No, they're not. He owns that party. He's got a firm control of the Liberal Party. And I think whenever they have their leadership review, I think he's going to survive that. But I think what he does need to do, and if they were asking, and they don't, but if they ever wanted some advice from people who are long-term supporters, is he's got to look at some kind of a succession plan.
Oh yeah, for sure, 100%. And there's a lot of voices around the corner. You know, you've heard rumblings about Chrystia Freeland and others that are looking at a seat. But you know, you make an interesting point that when Trudeau came on as leader of the Liberal Party, he did, and Jerry Butts, they did do a lot of changes to that party's constitution. So it's very, very difficult for them to get rid of a leader unless the leader wants to go.
Fascinating. It's fascinating.
But some people made, Marc, if you're right, a strategically bad decision. The heads have to roll with that bad decision, or no, if you eke out a minority government, you survive.
A strategically bad decision to call this election?
Yeah, and
look, I'm not certain that there's ever a strategically bad decision to call an election unless you don't have a reason to do it. I think, we all know that he has to look at how he's going to stem this CERB, how he's going to stem the spending. And I think that was the reason he wanted a majority, so that he didn't have to, make all these trade-offs. And I really think if you looked at the numbers in August, and if it was the other way around, the other parties would have said, sure, this makes sense. But I'm not certain that it was a strategically bad decision. We need to do something in this House of Commons to shake things up. The vitriol is at an all-time high. The cooperation's at an all-time low. I think we just things need to be shaken up a bit, and I think this election did that.
So, Sarah, if Mark's right, it's a Liberal minority. Aaron O'Toole survives?
Yeah, I think so. I think, he's run such a tight campaign. I think the messaging's been good. The platform's been good. It's been it's been thought out. The campaign stops were strategic. The visuals have been good. His performance in the debate has been good. I think that there may be a leadership review, which I think may be nominal, and I think he'll pass that no problem, and that will give him, enough time to get ready for the next election and really get ready to be. I think if he runs in the next election after this one, it will be Prime Minister Aaron O'Toole. And I'm not sure it's going to be this one.
No, but I'm going to give you that one. But if he moves fast right after the election to transform the party, Sarah, I think that would be really my advice to him was do that and do that fast.
Well, sounds like it's been an interesting campaign, but we may end up with exactly the same result. A Liberal minority government dependent on the NDP and or maybe the Bloc Québécois to get things passed. And Sarah thinks that Aaron O'Toole is going to survive and become the next Prime Minister after Justin Trudeau. And so I guess the more things change, they stay the same, or whatever the line is. But you know what? I really appreciate the two of you joining us and sharing with us your comments. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend, everyone. And think about, most importantly, that opportunity that not everyone in the world has to go out and exercise your franchise to vote. So Monday, please, even if it's a little crowded, even if you've got to wear a mask, get out there and cast your ballot and have your say in who you think should be not only the Prime Minister, but your local MP, because I think it also is critically important to choose that local MP.
Well said. And look, I'm happy to do a post-election purview of this, or a post-mortem, whatever Sarah wants.
Post-mortem, sign me up as well.
Fantastic. I'll ask you both. That's our show for tonight, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Vote on Monday.
Bye.